How many people watch a TV show called Portlandia? I've seen Portlandia. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I just kind of got into this the other day. I watched the first 2 episodes. So from this first episode of Portlandia, here's how it goes. This couple is sitting in a restaurant in Portland, Oregon. The waitress comes up and they said, what do you have on the menu? And she says, we've got this chicken. And they say, oh, can you tell me where the chicken is from? And she's like, excuse me? And she's like, no, where's the chicken? Where did the chicken grow up? And then she starts saying, well, the chicken's from this farm. They said, no, can you tell us a bit more? Like, what's the name of the chicken? Where did it grow up? So, and it goes on and on and on. And then the couple head up. They said, okay, we'll be back. We're going to meet the farmer right now and see the chickens. So they go off, they go to the farm, and it kind of goes on and on and on. They go through the whole thing, they come back to the restaurant, they said, okay, we've changed our mind, we're not gonna have chicken, can you tell us about the salmon? Okay, so I just thought that really fits in well tonight, like who we have here speaking. And like, I also want to say, like, everyone's talking about that, and it's local, and you know, everybody wants to know where their product's from. And you hear this all the time now, you hear more and more and more, and Whole Foods has got signs up, and Fresh Market signs up. So I want to pose a question to all of you here is, have you had, especially Andrea, in your restaurant, have you had this yet? Have people asked you to that detail where the product is from?
Absolutely.
They have. Wow, okay.
Yeah. Just recently, a couple of weeks ago, a friend of a new colleague who's working in a restaurant was just inquiring about our pork supplier and just wanted to know, where all of the meats were coming from. So it's really becoming very, very common for people to be asking those questions. So nothing, no crazy, what is the name of the chicken thing? People are, they're educated, they're savvy, and they're concerned and care to know where stuff is coming from.
I'll just say another footnote on the technology side is that you can now put a barcode on a piece of food in a grocery store and have a lot of information on there. And you can, I gather there's some, Eco Trust was doing a thing called F.I.S.H, where you could actually go online and see a video of the fish being caught or something like that, and the name of the boat it was caught, the time and the place. And this is called radical transparency, and I think this is where this is all going.
I've heard a lot of vocabulary, I guess, that organic farming, sustainable farming can't be done at a worldwide level with the population that we have. Is that a myth? Is that real?
If it was real, we're not going to make it, right? If it's not sustainable, what we're doing now as commodity farmers, and we are feeding a growing population, we are doomed. So sustainable farming has to be possible. It has to be. And we know already that chemicalized and pharmaceuticalized farming does not work. Plowing the grounds works to a certain extent, but interseeding works well because you have a lot less evaporation. So there is the what is it in Wichita, Kansas? It's the Institute of the Land Institute, exactly. They do huge research, have done so for almost 30 years on interseeding with grains. It can be done, but nobody wants to do it. It's a lot easier to put out Roundup and kill it all and then start with new soil. There's no willingness. And by the way, it's not that the farmer is not willing, but we have a huge chemical industry out there. We have a huge pharmaceutical industry, and they don't want to make us healthier. They don't want to make you healthier. They want to sell drugs. They want to sell chemicals. Anytime you have a business deal, who's making money? They're not interested in making good food. They're not interested in feeding the world population. No, they're interested in feeding who can pay. So absolutely, it's doable, but it might not make the money it should.
I'm going to give this to Susan, but I just want to remind people the meaning of the word sustainability. Sustainable means it's sustainable. You can keep doing it. If it's not sustainable, you can't keep doing it. So right there, it says that we have to be doing these things sustainably.
Yeah, one of the most memorable times I had to answer this question was a fellow, it was a group of Dutch tourists that had come to the farm to see what we were doing. And this guy is standing right in front of me, blowing cigar smoke in my face, telling me there's not enough land on the planet to feed people organically. We have to define what we mean by food. We have to be prepared to make choices. We have to look at what's nutritionally sustainable. And we have to say, like the woman who bought some sugar snap peas from me, $5 a pound, it came to $15. I said to her, are you okay with that? She said, oh yeah, that's way more value than a case of beer. Like, let's make the intelligent choices that relate to sustainability.
Recently I'm getting into bread making. I actually have a loaf on the stove right now, proofing at home right now, so I gotta get going pretty quick here. But there's only two places I know that are relatively local that mill their own grains, and that's True Grain Bakery, which is in Cowichan Bay, and Michael Abelman on Salt Spring Island, who's growing his own grain. And I was wondering if there's anywhere closer than that that's doing their own grains, milling their own flour. Anywhere? No? Sorry, that answers my question.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. But there's a company called Flower Peddlers in Vancouver. I'm not totally sure what they do, but I think there's some sort of connection there or something, right?
There was a grain CSA that was started a few years back, trying to do some growing legacy of wheat, and the Grain Peddlers was also sourcing product from Vancouver Island and doing some distribution, but very, very small scale milling. But the only people doing it are Anita's, I think.
Yeah, Anita's Organic does, and they do it at a very, very large scale. So they're supplying like Rocky Mountain flatbread, they're supplying all their flour for their pizzas. And,
Yeah, and Michael Abelman recently.
Yeah, Michael Abelman, that's right, yeah.
Mill is those people in Cowichan.
Yeah.
So last night I went to dinner, and at the bottom of the menu it said we do our best to source ethically, organically, etc., whenever possible. So you see that kind of thing. You see with chicken, you'll see everything from organic, free range to non-medicated to etc. And there's sort of like a fog of language. If you go to Staples and you buy paper, there's one particular type of paper where the packaging looks extremely ecologically sound, and on the back it says that trees can grow. They grow. No, literally, that's what it like. If you read the text, it's a bunch of jargon to kind of express that, hey, trees are something that grow back. It's not like oil, guys. So what we're doing is kind of sustainable. So my question to you guys is, as a consumer, how am I supposed to understand the etho and eco speak that I'm reading, and sort of what is the standard that I should expect?
Just sort of working in restaurants and having a connection to consumers, I think there is no standard, and that's what people need to understand, is that you have to educate yourself. That's why things like farmers markets are so important, is you have that opportunity to get to know the grower, and that's the only way that you're going to have that transparency and actually have a real true sense of what you're purchasing, when it's in season, and when someone's telling you the truth or not. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of misrepresentation in restaurants and in the whole food business. It's become very fashionable to be local and to be organic, so I think some people might be stretching the truth of the content of their menus and things like that, but that's just unfortunately what happens.
Well, yes, there is no standards, and the only way you will find out is by going for a visit. You got to meet the people, you got to see the land they work on and the land they work. And we could turn this around. We're the audience, you're the panel. May I ask a question? How many of you go on holidays? how far do you go on holidays? I know, the hands stay down. I would do that too. And what's wrong with visiting your lettuce supplier, or your carrot supplier, the egg supplier, the meat supplier, fish supplier, wherever they are in this province. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually probably a lot of fun. And it gives you a relationship to the food you will eat from now on, or from your holiday on. Totally different. We have one of our daughters does tourism on the ranch, agritourism. It's called Jesuit Wilderness and Ranch Adventures. We created many customers in Vancouver. There's a lot of overseas people, but the Vancouverite that comes to our ranch and stays for 3 to 5 days, goes on a cattle drive, whatever, guaranteed they will start buying our meat and our meat only. So it does work, but it's your own free will. We even sometimes organize a bus tour with people to come up, but it's a big undertaking. So anyway, yeah, go see yourselves.
Well, the good news is probably all of you have been to some of these Feast of Fields events where they're selling out, they're putting the prices up, people are still lining up. I don't know how many people were in the Pemberton one this year, but I was there last year. I think 4,000 people came out because they wanted to see the local farms. And so they're doing just what Andrea suggests, which is really see for yourself, find out for yourself, because there's just a plethora of certifications out there. And if you see the movie In Organic We Trust, you can get a little bit of an insight into whether you should believe the organic label or not. Mostly not, in the United States.
You're going to need to give me a chance here. So, in BC, we've had organic or certifying bodies or third-party inspections of farms for over 20 years. We have an organization called the Certified Organic Associations of BC. They have a website. The standards are there. The verification happens. And then the feds decide to get involved. And then the feds regulate that we can no longer, we've been training customers for 35 years to say, this product is certified organic, here's my certificate, there's my standards, there's the verification, the audit trail, and whatever. And then the feds decide that in order to level the playing field so that they can continue to import organic product from the United States, we can't call it certified organic anymore. We can only call it organic. So this is where my jaded edge comes in around the political process, which is not respectful and is not congruent with what we, the farmers, have been building and doing. So certified organic is a transparent process. And those standards do mean something, and the farmers are the ones who have helped develop the standards. So I wouldn't like to throw out all of the regulatory accountability. We display our certificates. You come and see and I'll tell you what it means.
I should just explain, when I said that earlier, that was a US reference, which was exactly what Susan was talking about, that their standards are much lower. Now they're trying to drag us down there too.
I think it's easy for us to say, like, there's a big segment of the population that finds it easy to pay the extra dollar for organics. I'm happy to go visit farms and find out where my food's coming from. But how do we reach the masses and really fulfill this revolution? And I'm looking at things like distributors. Companies like Cisco and GFS, are they our friends or are they our enemies? Like, how do we get deep into the system?
As consumers, we are consumers too, of not farm goods, but still we are consuming a lot. We can vote with the money we spend. So when we buy organic, whatever it is, we show all the others, hey, these people are really getting interested in organic. And big farms will start thinking about going organic. We were at the conference quite a few years ago in San Francisco. I walked across the street to buy some organic local wine in there, and the shopkeeper said, well, really, I haven't got anything, but I have a Chilean wine. I said, yeah, I'm at the end of Napa Valley, and I'll buy a wine from Chile. She said, very likely. And he said, what, he said, it's actually quite simple. Napa Valley is almost organic. And he started with a bunch of hippies. And they started to sue one big producer because he flew in by aerial application his herbicides and pesticides. They sued, they won. So he couldn't fly it on anymore, it got too expensive, so he used tractors. And then that's very highly labor intensive, and he quit that. He looked at these hippies making actually quite nice money with organic wine, and a lot of the Napa Valley, probably most of it, they told me, is organic. Maybe not certified, but they use hardly any chemicals. So as consumers, you vote, you say, hey, this is the food we buy and we don't buy anything else.
If consumers ask for this stuff, it'll become more commonplace, and the more demand there is for it, the more efficient the farmers will be because they have a bigger market and more choices. And somebody from Farm Folk, City Folk told me that at their Meet the Maker conference that they do every year, this year they've got more people from Cisco coming than they've ever had before because they are realizing people want this stuff. And again, back to the local procurement, if the institutions that they serve are saying we need a percentage of this local, go find it somewhere. They'll find it, and it'll build up that the strength of the local market and make this more accessible for everybody.
I think there's also an awareness that it's not going to be the farmers that are going to solve all of the problems all the way up the economic scale. I think there are some initiatives that are coming forward that are very exciting. One of them is the nutrition program coming out of our provincial government, where they offer coupons to low-income people that are redeemed at the farmers markets. But you can't ask me, who earns $12 an hour, to provide my food at a third of what I'm now charging it so that I can earn $12 an hour to feed the people who you're referring to. There's injustice in the system, there's injustice in the land ownership system, and these are all epidemic in our whole culture. So we need to be problem solving at every level and not dumping it all on me if you don't want to buy my kale for $3 a bunch.
I was at a conference last week. It was called Distinguished Restaurants of North America in Vancouver, and it was all fine dining restaurants and a whole bunch of different topics, but it kind of touched a lot on this. So in Vancouver, I don't know if everybody's aware, there's a greenhouse market on top of this parking garage in Richard Street, growing lettuce and a bunch of other vegetables, which is being sold to many restaurants around Vancouver. So you look at the inner city farm now, which is in this greenhouse, versus the farm that Susan has out in the Valley. And everybody talks local, they want to get local. So has this affected you yet, or what is your view on this inner city, farms that are growing on top of parking garages, which could be impacting your business either now or in the future, versus how do you keep your farm alive growing in the valley?
I think there's lots of products that you're not going to grow on the roof of a parking lot. We've got Oregon sweet meat squash. Those weigh between 5 and 15 pounds. They're very, very good food. They're good winter food. We don't advocate that you grow lettuce all year round. If you want to do it in the city and you've got the resources to put those kind of inputs into them, go ahead. But I suspect you're going to want some squash on the menu too. So we're trying to diversify into the crops that are nutrient dense, that are not necessarily going to be able to be grown in the kind of volume that you need in the cities. Potatoes, another one. And if you can feed all the people in the city salads using that system, great. I suspect there's still going to be room for us in the marketplace. The other thing we're doing is we're growing seed for crops. So my view is, as the seed production gets privatized and pyramidalized, you're going to be wanting seed for those lettuces. And we're growing a variety. The kind of seed that we grow is open pollinated, has diversity built into it. At some point, if you're using a very uniform kind of seed in a highly dense production system, you're going to hit some kind of a disease challenge or some kind of a production challenge that you won't have the diversity in the seed to address. So that's another role that we play. And a further role that we're diversifying into is that we're growing transplants. So at the early season farmers markets, we're bringing you the plants so you can grow it yourself, so you can understand what it takes to grow. And interestingly enough, not many people are getting zucchini growing that bought zucchini plants from me because you haven't got the pollinators in the city. So I think it's always going to be a kind of a reciprocal relationship of shared knowledge and diversifying to meet the needs of the people that want to eat.
Glad to hear that. Thank you. So you said, what are the negatives of growing in the city?
Yeah.
When people are doing community gardens in brownfields or parking lots, there's often a lot of concern about bad stuff in the soil. But Will Allen, who was here, who's the sort of the rock star of urban agriculture, he's a big proponent of you can just right on top of pavement, you can just pile on good, fresh compost, earth, soil, and just start growing things, and you don't have to worry about what's down below. And the same with contaminated soils. A lot of inner city gardens will put a clay layer down or something down to prevent the bad stuff from coming up. But generally, it doesn't get into even the root vegetables. And you can get the soil tested if you're worried about it. In some places, like in China, there's probably a lot of lead around in the soil, which is definitely not good. And you can wash also some of the pollution off the leafy greens to clean them up. So there really isn't that much danger. People are having theft issues and other things, but it's another story.
I think we live in a toxic world, so there's going to be trade-offs, and if you really, really need to be that pure, I guess you're looking for another planet, because we've really messed this one up.
Okay, so it's one thing getting knowledge about organic and sustainability and all that. We can come to events like this, which is great, but when we go into the real world, it's like you still have those habits, and how do you put that knowledge into action? How do you break those habits? Like, there's like those Walmarts and there's Costco's open 24 hours, and sometimes you just don't have time. Like, how do you break the habits to get into a healthier lifestyle?
If you have the bad habit not to talk to your wife for 3 weeks, you will lose your wife, right? She'll walk out. So get rid of the bad habits and make good habits. Make a choice. Say, hey, no, I'm not buying this crap.
Another thing is, it's something that I really admire Michael Pollan for, the food writer. You don't have to be pure all the time, do everything right, completely, perfectly. It's okay to sin a little bit and compromise a little bit, but push yourself in the general direction. And one of the lessons from the diet world is rather than try to deny yourself something you want, just fill yourself more with the good stuff, and eventually the bad stuff will fall off the edge. And that's another approach.
Just a little ad here. My wife is in the audience, and she would not think it's funny if I sin a little bit.
You're saying that the Americans have lower standards. What do you think about Whole Foods? My question is, Whole Foods is here and supposedly sells Canadian, sells BC products, but they also sell American fruits. But does that mean that they can mix their crappy American certified organic stuff with our stuff, or is there a standard when they come up here that they have to sell better stuff because we're Canadians? Because I was in New York recently and they have cookies, they have all kinds of crap in their Whole Foods that we don't have here. So I'm kind of curious, is there some sort of regulations that when they come up here that it has to be better because we're Canadians?
I shop at Whole Foods quite a bit, and I can't speak to the prepared stuff. I don't generally go into that, but you can literally see, like, if they're selling leeks that say they're from a particular grower in BC, like, because I deal with those people at the restaurant all the time, you can tell if it's their produce. So I don't get a sense from Whole Foods that they're, those leeks that say they're from a particular farm are coming from somewhere else, like.
But I'm wondering about their American stuff.
Yeah, I can't comment.
No, I'm talking about the fruits, because if they have a lower standard of being called certified organic, is there a certain way that when it comes to Canada, because we have stricter laws, that stuff gets shifted up, or does it just get shifted in?
It doesn't sound like we have stricter laws anymore, though, does it? It sounds like they've leveled the playing field for everybody, so everything can just be called organic and not certified organic. Yeah. So, I guess, again, it's up to the consumer to educate themselves and know that they'd rather have a certified organic product from BC and not something coming in from Mexico or America.
I think you also have to be willing to make choices based on your values. So if you're going to value certified organic or organic, does that mean you want papayas? Or, you know, are you willing to eat with the seasons where you're living? There's a campaign out for Organic Week that I think has a really brilliant logo, and it's a green plate in the shape of a stop sign, and in the middle it says think. And that's really fundamentally what needs to happen, is you make the choices based on the best information you can get and what you value the most. And in the cases where you're making some choices that aren't necessarily the highest and best, then embrace your contradiction and figure out why you're doing it and how often you want to keep doing it.
When you look at fish in places like Whole Foods, Safeway, they're an American company, a lot of times they're cheaper, yes. Something that a lot of people haven't considered is how old the fish is. Chances are, if they're caught in Alaska, most of the time they need to actually arrive to Seattle before it gets back up to BC. Nobody really knows how many days it would usually take. You know, it could be 3 days, it could be 5 days. So by the time it gets to BC, it could be 8 days old. So, buy Canadian.
And you can smell it.
Can you trust the dates on fish? Do you trust them?
No, we go by smell most of the time. Well, first of all, we already know
where our fish is from. My phone's been ringing all night because fishermen are telling me they don't want to come home yet, or they're coming home early. So we have very close communications with the fishermen. So we always know when fish arrived and when fish actually were sold. A lot of the times, it's as alarming as it sounds. A lot of the markets, I would like to believe that their fish is about seven days old at least. More because of the transportation, and also at the supermarkets, when you get the fish that's already cut, a lot of times they don't cut it in the store itself. And more alarming is that a lot of times when they cut them in fillets, a lot of times because on the other side of the fish there might be a scar, or on the other side of the fish might be mushy. So that's why we always try to promote that we cut from a whole fish, so we see a whole fish that is healthy, that is nice, and when we cut them, we open up, they're beautiful. And we don't try to cut corners or anything.
So one thing I don't know if anyone's aware, I just heard this the other day, I didn't know this, but Safeway was an American company, but Safeway Canada was just sold to Sobeys, which is a Canadian company. So I'm kind of wondering, like, there's a lot, when you go to the produce section of Safeway, all this American stuff. So now I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Like, is it going to be Canadian? Like, will it be supporting the local farmers come in the future because it's a Canadian-owned company now versus American? So that's going to be kind of interesting to watch.
I think it depends which direction they want to go, right? Do they want to make money, or do they want to do the right thing and make a smaller amount of money?
Right.
So
it's interesting to see. Yes. Anyway, so thank you all for asking your great questions, for coming tonight. Please give all of our speakers a round of applause tonight. It was really